Hazardous eruption is possible within days to weeks as PHIVOLCS raises alert level 3 over the Taal volcano. Still on the Taal volcano's continued unrest, authorities in nearby areas are now preparing to evacuate residents. The National Bureau of Investigation has arrested 3 people for selling COVID-19 vaccines worth 840,000 pesos. The Labor Department has welcomed the latest labor force survey results, where the Philippines posted its second lowest unemployment rate since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. And in sports, we look back at the close fight between Gilas, Pilipinas and Serbia. Fast, focused, and fearless. Here's a roundup of stories we're watching now. I'm Sean Yao. Alert level 3 has been raised over the Taal volcano after a phreatomagmatic eruption at 3 p.m. or past 3 p.m. today. PHIVOLCS explained that there is now a magmatic intrusion at the main crater, which could drive succeeding eruptions. Alert level 3 also means that a hazardous eruption is possible within days or weeks. And with this, PHIVOLCS has strongly recommended the evacuation of residents in high-risk barangays of Agoncillo and Laurel in Batangas. PHIVOLCS OIC Renato Solidum said the steam eruption this afternoon will not bring ashfall. Still, Solidum has advised residents to wear N95 masks and stay indoors as the volcano continues to emit sulfur dioxide. And 3 people were arrested in an entrapment operation for selling COVID-19 vaccines. One of the suspects is a medical practitioner. Marlene Alcaide with the story.
The Investigation Bureau caught 3 people in the act of selling COVID-19 vaccines. Agents posed as buyers of some 300 doses of Sinovac jabs worth around 840,000 pesos. Among those arrested is a nurse working at Gat Andres Bonifacio Memorial Medical Center. The suspect refused to comment, but this was later confirmed by Manila Mayor Isko Moreno.
He is a confirmed employee of Gat Andres Bonifacio Hospital, and he should go to jail.
Isko, however, clarified that the vaccines did not come from the Manila LGU.
So far, sa initial report, it's not from us. And siguro natapot na rin yung Tolonges. Sa ibang bayan niya binenta. Dahil alam nila na bawal magtinda, bawal kumita.
The NBI believes that they targeted Chinese nationals in particular.
Yung vaccines, they're offering it dun sa mga Chinese. Because sa Filipino, it's basically free lang naman yan, di ba? So free lang sa atin. So yung mga Chinese, ang talagang target nila rito na mabigyan ng vaccines.
The suspects may face 5 to 10 years of imprisonment due to violation of the FDA law. It states that selling of medical supplies not approved commercially is illegal.
This is not the time to be selfish. This is not the time to be greedy. It's time for us to stick together and start caring.
The NBI is expected to call the attention of other agencies as it conducts the probe. For News 5, Marlene Alcaide, we are One News.
We'll have more stories after this short break. Stay with us. are still watching One News Now. I'm Sean Yao. The private sector is set to roll out Moderna vaccines, which landed in the Philippines a few days ago. But ICTSI, who spearheaded the sector's vaccination efforts, raised concerns over bottlenecks that the government needs to address first. Regina Lay with the story.
Businesses are calling on the government to speed up the vaccination program nationwide. At a recent virtual forum hosted by think tank Strat-based ADR Institute, executives discussed ways for the private sector to fill the gaps in the race to herd immunity. ICTSI, which bought the Moderna vaccines on behalf of the private sector, says there are bottlenecks on the ground that slow down the whole process.
At the vaccination center, there's two bottlenecks, right? One is determining whether the person has an appointment or not. The validating is easy, right? Scan a QR code. But you don't want 4 or 5 people in a household having to do appointments 4 or 5 different ways. One is doing appointments with this company. Another one is doing it with the LGU. Another one is doing it in the province that they're from. The second bottleneck is the health screening. You shouldn't have to turn up to a vaccine center and sit down with a doctor for 15 minutes to fill up a health screening form, right? You can do it in advance.
ICTSI will begin rolling out over the next few days the first batch of Moderna vaccines, which it procured last year but was delayed a couple of times. This first shipment of 249,600 doses were split up. 150,000 doses went to the government, while the rest were distributed to various companies. This makes Moderna the 5th brand to be used in the country. But despite the growing supply, only a little over 2% of the population have been fully vaccinated or have gotten both doses. And with the emergence of the Delta variant, businesses are wary about another lockdown.
We haven't been very good in testing, contact tracing, testing, and the use of data. And that kind of massive effort is really something that we need from the government. South Korea never locked down widespread strictly because they did this very well. If you're testing, you're tracing, your data analytics are very good, then you don't need to resort to widespread lockdowns. So that's one thing we need from the government.
ICTSI's Christian Gonzalez agrees. Gonzalez is also involved in the company's build-out of various vaccine hubs, including the one in Nayong Filipino. He says based on their experience, vaccination sites can ramp up to jabbing as many as 700 people an hour.
But a lot of people have parking garages. A lot of people have ballrooms. A lot of people have things like this. And if you very quickly get everybody using the same very efficient setup, I'm telling you, in each site you can do 500, 600, 700, maybe an hour. And we won't have to, the government can then focus on what the government should be focusing on, alleviating poverty and things like that, not having to worry about how we're going to go from 2% to 3% because we get very quickly to 60%. But that's not going to happen without the private sector.
Regina Lay, One News.
All right, let's circle back to Taal volcano, where the alert level has been raised from 2 to 3. And authorities are now rolling up their sleeves for the evacuation of residents in nearby areas. We'll get the latest from NDRRMC spokesperson Mark Timbal, who joins us over the line. Good afternoon, Mark. Are you already preparing for evacuation? I have seen some videos of people evacuating. How soon will it start, or how's it going at the moment?
Hi, Ms. Sean. Good evening. Currently, the Regional Disaster Council for Calabarzon is conducting a meeting with all major players for the response activities in the Taal emergency. So far, we are still waiting at the NDRMC level. We are still waiting for an update on the count of evacuated population if the evacuation has already been done. The recommendation of PHIVOLCS is that the high-risk barangays of the municipalities of Agoncillo and Laurel should have evacuation activities done.
All right, and do we have any idea, Mark, how many residents are affected and are likely to be evacuated?
We're still waiting for the figures coming from the local government units and the regional disaster councils. But based upon the contingency plan that had been arranged for this kind of emergency, the expectation is that if there would be any evacuation that would be done, all responding agencies, especially our counterparts in the uniformed services, must execute this at the soonest possible time, meaning residents in areas that are at high risk must be evacuated immediately.
All right. Well, the first time that we had this much panic over the eruption of the volcano was right before the pandemic and the lockdown. How do we ensure, Mark, that evacuation this time around will not result in COVID-19 transmissions? Are there any strategies that you have looked to, just waiting for this day to come, possibly?
Yeah. If you can remember, Ms. Sean, after Taal relatively went quiet, the disaster councils from the national level down to the regions and the local government units had finalized and harmonized the contingency plan for this emergency. And so far, this plan is already in place, and all local government units and other players are doing that. This also involves the consideration for the protection of the public from COVID-19. So every citizen that will be evacuated must, of course, be wearing their face mask, their face shield. The transportation must observe physical distancing up to the point of the evacuation center. Evacuation center should not be crowded. Physical distancing should be observed still, and that there would be regular health monitoring for people who may be exhibiting symptoms of disease. They should not be staying in evacuation centers, but be placed in the quarantine facility so that they can be provided the usual assistance for possible cases.
Right, and at this moment in time, Mark, what are the most urgent needs of these LGUs that are affected by the Taal volcano's eruption or pre-eruption? Do you need N95 masks, other essentials? Are these things being covered at the moment?
So far, with the current arrangement that everyone is still wearing their mask, we are seeing that the situation is still manageable by the local government units. But the national government and the Regional Disaster Council, we are ready to provide any support if the local government units would require it.
Right, that's very good to hear. And just in case nearby residents are actually tuned in right now, what can they expect, or what should they be doing or preparing for in the next 24 hours? What would be your advice to them?
Yes. As per the advice provided by PHIVOLCS and our local government units, please continue monitoring the local situation, observe, and please regularly coordinate with your local government units, your barangays, if in case there will be a call for evacuation. Please prepare your families so that in case an evacuation notice is issued, you can immediately go to the evacuation center with the assistance of our local authorities. Ready or go back, and as well as other necessities, so that in case you may go to the evacuation center, there wouldn't be any problem.
All right, so basically get ready to evacuate. Thank you so much for your time and stay safe. NDRRMC spokesperson Mark Timbal over the phone. Thank you, sir.
Good evening.
For more updates, visit News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World online. Visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Sean Yao. We are One News.